There was a pompous wedding, plans to build a house, and a dream of many offspring. Meanwhile, my son hasn't learned to walk, and I'm already waiting for my first divorce hearing. I will tell you how I became a single mother. She writes. Until recently, happily married. Before we got married, my partner seemed like perfect father material. He said he couldn't wait to have a baby. It turns out that you can be a great uncle for other people's children and a bad father for your son at the same time, says the young mother. The more time she devoted to bonding with her child, the more her husband distanced himself from her. He thinks I'm the one who shut himself out of marriage. I think that he did not meet the challenge of parenthood. Our reader describes her relationship. It was she who suggested joint therapy to her partner. What about my husband? I heard words that I will remember for the rest of my life, she complains in the letter. There was a wedding with pomp, plans to build a house, and a dream of a bunch of offspring. Meanwhile, my son hasn't learned to walk, and I'm already waiting for my first divorce hearing. I will tell you how I became a single mother. We were a couple throughout college. We've known each other for 7 years. I thought it was my other half. I really believed he was the one man of my dreams. Sounds trivial, right? Before we got married, my partner seemed like perfect father material. He said he couldn't wait to have a baby. No sooner had we vowed love to the grave than he was trying to get me pregnant. I changed my name in May 2020, and in the spring of 2021, I gave birth to a son. It was the beginning of the end of my marriage. He treated me coldly. Due to restrictions related to the coronavirus pandemic, her husband was not present at the birth. So I tried to give birth naturally. After 8 hours, the baby's heart rate began to drop, and the doctor performed a cesarean section. Later he was diagnosed with jaundice. I was in the hospital with him for a week. He was being irradiated. The puerperium was taking its toll on me. The cesarean section wound was healing poorly. Lactation developed very slowly. I had the support of midwives, which I cannot say about my husband. His interest in the child amounted to a few messages a day. Then, he asked about his health and the hospital discharge date. There was little tenderness and intimacy in all this. I got more empathy from my friends, who called me daily and supported me with warm words. On the other hand, my newly baked dad treated me quite coldly. As if I had gone on a business trip for a few days and not given birth to a child in pain. My hope that my husband would change his attitude after returning home was illusory. He was glad to see his son, but his joy did not last long. He quickly realized that we had an irreplaceable child. My son woke up every hour at night, and I got up with him. I asked my husband to be more involved in caring for the newborn. In response, I heard he needs to sleep because he goes to work. Not what I do. How was my life? I slept 3 or 4 hours a night for the first few weeks. Parents visited us only when the little one was 2 months old. Even my mother-in-law noticed that we weren't bursting with joy. What was I supposed to enjoy? When our son appeared in our bedroom, at the same time, the cold beating from my husband settled in it. If I had to describe the beginnings of motherhood in one word, I would call it loneliness. My husband was coming home later and later. Today I know that he escaped from his duties at home in this way. We just talked about shopping and getting our son vaccinated. Shared moments? Only on the way to the clinic or pharmacy. While I was putting my son to sleep in the evenings, he was lying on the couch with the remote control in his hand. When I came to the living room, he would pick up his phone or work laptop. I became a lousy wife and mistress. It turns out that you can simultaneously be a great uncle to other people's children and a lousy father to your son. I can count on the fingers of one hand how many times my husband has changed or bathed the baby. He never put him to sleep. What hurts me the most is that he never offered to let me take a nappy break. And so passed the first 6 months of our son's life. The second half was an absolute disaster. The silence turned into an argument. More and more often, I heard that I stopped looking at him as a man. He reminded me of the lack of sex. I explained to him that it's natural, that everything changes after giving birth, and that the child is the center of attention, not the man. My husband felt rejected. That's when I realized he was jealous of our son. My explanation that he should relieve me of my duties could have been more helpful. Maybe I'd have time to sleep and organize a romantic evening for two. Instead of looking for a solution, the man I considered my ideal before the wedding attacked me nonstop. For him, I have become a poor wife, lover, and mother because it is my fault that my son eats little and is gaining weight poorly. After Easter, which we spent with my parents, I decided we could not continue such a relationship. He thinks I'm the one who shut himself out of marriage. I don't think he was up to the challenge of parenthood. We couldn't agree on anything, so I suggested therapy. What about my husband? I heard words that I will remember for the rest of my life. He called my pregnancy a dud. He said he saw no point in continuing this drama. That's what our marriage was to him. He said that we rushed with the decision to have a child. He called my pregnancy a dud. He explained that he was trying to be a good dad but didn't feel it. He cannot accept that my son has replaced his place in my life and is now the most important to me. The next day he packed his things and moved to the hotel. He offered to see his son twice a month. For a long time, I could not believe what I heard from my own husband, the father of my child, who vowed love on me in front of the altar. Even the in-laws hoped that their son would come to his senses. But, instead, they deluded themselves that perhaps he had said too much on his nerves and acted on impulse. I knew that wasn't true. I could see from my husband's face, from his trembling hands, that he had already made up his mind. Of course, I had a little hope that our marriage could still be saved. This illusion was shattered 2 days after our son's birthday. Then the postman handed me a divorce petition. I used to read about such stories only in newspapers, on gossip portals, and in books. Today, I am an abandoned wife raising a child alone. We have our first divorce hearing in 6 months. My lawyer says the case could drag on for years. The husband does not agree to the amount of alimony awarded by the court for the duration of the case. She also wants to fight for joint custody. A man who has changed his child several times, has never fed or put him to sleep, and has seen his son twice since moving out, wants to have him exclusively for half a month. Bizarre, right? I hope the judge will consider these arguments. Now I live only my son's life. I'm going to therapy. I'm going back to work soon. After that, my son will go to nursery. Her mother-in-law, who lives in the neighboring district, also declared help in care. At least she has class, not like her firstborn.